guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mel Chadwick. I'm a freelance illustrator, and today I'm going to be chatting to you about my Creative Conversation series. So today I'm going to be talking about that series, why I started it, and sharing with you some of my struggles that I had with doing it, but also I'm going to be answering some of your questions. Thank you so much for those who asked questions, and hopefully you will have answers by the end of this video. My Creative Conversation series is basically where I go and visit other creatives in their studios, whether that be in a home studio or a place that they rent or a shed in their back garden. I chat with them about their business, get them to talk about their struggles, their successes, what motivates and inspires them, and also any tips and advice they may for others who are also working in a creative business. I thought of this idea back in 2017 when I myself was working as a designer maker. My main area was screen printing, and I would regularly go to craft fairs to sell my wares. The thing that I really enjoyed about doing the craft fairs was actually meeting other makers and talking to them about their business, about their life. It was a really great way to encourage one another and support each other, as well as see the face behind the product. I think so often we do see products beautifully presented, photographed in the perfect light, and so we then maybe forget about the struggle that it took to actually get to that product. So that's where I thought, wouldn't that be great to go and visit creatives in their own space, film the space, whilst also talking to them about how they run their business. It wasn't until January 2018 that I actually sent that email to Lee from Bombay Forest, asking her if she would like to be in the first episode with me. Thankfully she said yes, and I got all my stuff together and filmed her in a home studio in Cornwall. I had met Lee before, so meeting and talking with her wasn't as awkward as it could have been, and Lee is a lovely person to talk to anyway, so she was a really good first person to go and do a creative conversation with. So now I'm just going to answer some of your questions about the series. Just want to give a big thank you to Sally, Claire, Hattie, Liza and Carolina for your questions. Obviously, if I have missed your question, or if you have a question from this Q&A, please leave it below and I will answer it in the comments. So as I said, I used to do a lot of craft fairs, selling my wares and getting to know other designer makers. I would say about 80% of the other designer makers were actually female, so it was quite hard actually to find men who were making and selling for a living. I started by asking people who I had some kind of relationship with. I knew their work pretty well, and so I just naturally got in touch with them, and they just all happened to be women. One of the important things is that this is their full-time work and that they've been maybe doing this for a few years. It's basically people that I have a relationship with, or I know their work really well, and I feel confident enough to go and ask them to take part and would be willing for me to come in with a camera and ask them questions. Although there were a couple in the last series that I hadn't actually met before in person, and I just knew their work online. The more conversations that I had with people, it meant that my confidence grew, and I felt I was able to then ask people who I wouldn't have thought of maybe in the first instance to ask. But sometimes you've just got to start with what you know and who you know, and then progress from there. It is a good question, and it would be something I would love to do, but at the moment I don't have a budget for shooting any of these conversations. The reason that I stick to Cornwall, for instance, is because I'm in Cornwall and all of these people are on my doorstep. Thankfully, Cornwall is a pretty creative place. There are a lot of people who are running their own businesses. I'm just going to start with my own backyard and take it from there. So what equipment do I use? I tend to keep it very simple. I do all the filming on the camera that I'm using now, which is a Sony mirrorless camera. It's very simple. It's normally used for vlogging, and the reason that I use it because it's got a screen that flips up, which means I can see exactly where I am on the camera, and it means that the person I'm interviewing as well can see where they are as well. It's pretty basic, and I do all the editing in Premiere Pro. I then play with the colour and the exposure on the programme rather than try and fuss about it on the camera. One, though, really important piece of equipment that I invested in was my mic. I think it's really important that people can hear what you're saying clearly, and I know for me, when I'm working, I like to listen to podcasts or YouTube videos, but I may not always be looking at the screen. So the sound is what's probably the most important. So I felt that I should invest in a decent recording device. It just means the audio quality is really good and you're not distracted by any fuzzy noises or just not being understand what people say. It is an H5 handy recorder made by Zoom, and you can add different accessories to it. You can even plug in other microphones to it if you want to, but I just have it as it is and just record straight onto it. I've also just invested in some lights, which I haven't used yet in my creative conversations because I tend to just use the natural light that is there, and that's great because it means actually natural light's pretty flattering. But if, say, I'm in a shed and there's no lighting, then I can bring in now some lights and we can hopefully see each other. It is only me that goes and does this conversation. I think people are sometimes surprised when I go and do the conversation that I'm not with a team of people. It is only me, so it means that I've got to carry all my equipment. So I'm not going to overload myself, and I just want to keep it simple. And also, when you turn up with too much equipment that looks too, big, it can really intimidate the person that you're talking to. So I just want to keep it as basic as possible so that people aren't overwhelmed or thinking, oh my goodness, I can't do this. My role is not just an interviewer or a camera person, it's also to make the person I'm talking to feel really comfortable on camera. Not everyone naturally can talk to a camera and feel really comfortable. I know I didn't when I first started vlogging. I used to stutter quite a lot and I used to get disconnect between what I was saying and then what I was seeing. But over time, my confidence is built, and so I've got to remember that that person who I'm talking to may never have been on camera, and maybe this is their first time. So I've also got to try and help them to feel as relaxed as possible. Absolutely, I would definitely say every conversation that I've had in the last series have triggered or encouraged or motivated or inspired me in some way. I've taken their advice or maybe what they've talked about, and then I've just put it into my own work. And that doesn't mean to say that my work, my projects have been identical to what they're talking about, but I mean just the way that I approach my work. So the themes of like persevering and trying something new or leaning into your niche, all of those ideas I've then put back into my own projects that I've been working on. Like, for instance, just being able to talk to Caroline about keeping a sketchbook, which I keep a sketchbook. And so it was just really encouraging conversation to talk about similar themes and talk about the practice of keeping a sketchbook. In all of your conversations, have you noticed a theme in the key to success? So over the 9 conversations that I've had, what I've noticed is that every creative, every one of them kind of knew what their direction was. So with Lee, she loves drawing from her imagination and everything's quite magical. With Julia, her work is inspired by nature. Similarly with Lou, her work is also inspired by nature. But you can see that each person has a particular subject matter that really inspires them, and they've kind of kept going with that. So I think the key is to, which we touched on with Sarah, was about leaning into your niche. It was like getting hold of what it is that you are really either passionate about or drawn to, and really going and exploring that more. And another theme that I could see was that everyone persevered in their work. So even if something didn't work, they either adjusted it slightly and moved into something else, or they just kept going but maybe went at it from a different angle. And I think it's so important, that character, to be able to persevere and endure the struggle, because if you don't do that, then you don't really appreciate the good times that you'll get from running the business as well. The final question is, are you going to continue Creative Conversations in 2019? I think you probably gathered that yes, that is what I'm going to be doing this year. I am going to be continuing the series, and I'm really looking forward to interviewing new creatives, people from different disciplines, and hopefully we'll get some guys on the series as well. Anyway, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed listening to this behind the scenes Q&A for Creative Conversations. If you haven't checked out any Creative Conversations, then why not? Please go and check them out. There are lots and lots of info. There's 9 creative conversations. All the people I spoke to really gave a lot of helpful advice, and it's been great to bring them to a wider audience. So if you've enjoyed them as well, please share with your friends, share with your colleagues, maybe share with people who are thinking of moving into a creative profession. All of the people I spoke to are practicing artists or creators, and this is their full-time job. So all the information that they give is based on real life. I'm really looking forward to bringing you more Creative Conversations this year. I'll speak to you again soon, guys. Bye.
Newsletter is a great way, but I kind of use my social media to help build that list. Please start that bit again. Yeah, we're still. My mum's looking after the dog.
We should go say.
Here she is. Hello. All right. That's good. She's interviewing me. Oh, that's all right.
You'll make a feature.
Yeah. In the outtakes. Is it Archie?